The Play Absolutely podcast with Dr. Sue Jennings and Dr. Andy Hickson.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Play Absolutely podcast. Hi Sue, how you doing?
Hi, Andy. Good to see you again.
Yes. Yeah, good to see you. So how's the week been for you? Any new play things happening?
Of course, once we start doing these podcasts, one starts thinking of all sorts of things in relation to play and I start questioning things that I do and the way I teach. Am I being playful enough and
Okay.
so on? So it's good to keep play at the back of one's mind as much as we can.
Yeah, and at the forefront of one's mind. So that's good. So you find actually this process is giving you food for reflection on play. Wow. Okay. Okay,
And
well, so
the
give you
whole field, I must say, is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Well, something for you to reflect a bit more on. We both talked about introducing a new segment to the podcast, and we are going to do that today. So it's all about play being in the news. So, we've sorted out some stories. So let's fire away with our new segment. So in the news this week, in all about play in the UK Parliament, play wasn't a break from learning. It was the argument about what learning is. A large petition triggered a Westminster Hall debate on whether play-based learning and continuous provision should be embedded into the statutory Key Stage 1 curriculum. What appears to be happening is a struggle over what counts as real learning, what gets measured, and what schools feel permitted to prioritise. So if play is reframed as legitimate learning, it gives schools cover to use drama and play structures without apologising for them. It also opens a sharper question. What evidence do we accept as impact, and who gets to define it? One question that comes to my mind is who speaks for the children's experience in these debates and who's missing. So we'll keep you updated on this developing story. Another story from the New Statesman, and it had a clever headline: the hidden cost of depletion. You see play in the middle there. And this was a feature arguing that children's play is being eroded through ordinary decisions of adult systems, signage, policing of space, defensive design, and a slow decline in accessible places to play. It points to long-run closures and the knock-on effects of childhood independence, movement, and social life. What's being called play versus what's actually happening. Play gets framed as noise, nuisance, disorder. What's really happening is the managed removal of children from public life. The harm is not one villain. It's 1,000 micro rules linking exclusions, low belonging, and behaviour problems to an already environmental issue that has stripped agency from children. And this suggests to me that when you erase everyday play, you don't create safety, you create pressure. So, something to think about. One more bit of news, and this time from abroad, not just from the UK. This is from Reuters, and they have the headline that school kits finally enter Gaza, including recreational items. After a long period of restrictions, a delivery of school kits reached children in Gaza, including basic learning materials and recreational items. I think this highlights how education is being delivered in severely constrained conditions and why small normalizing resources matter psychologically as well as educationally. What's being called play versus what's actually happening. Recreational items can sound minor, but in reality they're a signal that childhood is still being defended, even amid this huge devastation. I think also it shows that play is not a luxury add-on, it's resilience, technology, drawing a line between trauma-aware practice and the right to joy. That's this week. Play in the news. We'll bring you more next time. So, what do you think
Goodness
about
me.
those stories, Sue?
That is a lot to cover.
It
I
is.
think it'll overlap another session too. I mean, even the very word, if we think recreational materials, I mean, recreation is recreate.
Right.
So are our recreational materials really enabling children to recreate? And I think the erosion of spaces that you talked about also started with the selling off of playing fields and then children having to be bused to somewhere they could play. I mean, a lot of schools over the last, 20, 30 years have been selling off their outdoor spaces to sort of to refund themselves because education has never been funded enough. And gets even more urban development on those special spaces.
Yeah.
But I think the first point, Andy, about acknowledging and trying to now develop the importance of play and drama in the curriculum are really important. And as you rightly say, who gets to say what that includes? But very importantly, does it include the children themselves at all ages? Children at primary, secondary. Sorry?
I was going to say, I think it's clear from our own knowledge in this area, but also from the article itself, is that during these discussions, there doesn't appear to be any child or young people's voices being listened to, or indeed being invited to speak about it, which is typical in so many levels in society, particularly in government, I think.
Well, how can we address that in future podcasts?
How can we address that? Well, maybe we can bring in some young voices ourselves. Maybe that's something we can do.
And encourage young voices to write in and comment. And to say what's important for us to talk about that they would like to see as well.
Yes, I don't think it's enough to say, well, we were young once. We know what it's like because we were children once. That's true, of course. We all were young once. But we're old now. We need some young voice, some fresh ideas, fresh input, because everything changes. Things aren't the same now.
Never before have things changed so rapidly as at the moment. In terms of technology, it's completely changed the whole idea of learning. Remote learning, learning at home during COVID. And it won't go back. This is the point, that learning has changed and that learning will stay and it will go on being developed.
I thought it was a very interesting thing you said about the word recreation, recreate, and I think very, very poignant in the recreation, if you like, of Gaza, which is obviously being leveled at the moment. I don't think there's many, if any, buildings still standing. So the recreation or the recreate isn't just about children's recreation and children's play, but it's also, I think, the recreation of the whole of the land, the area, the Gaza Strip, as it's called.
Yes, and I think when we start looking at the global idea of recreation, and even just look at a map now and look at where borders have changed, even over the last 10 years, and countries have new names. I find it quite difficult to keep up with the new names of countries.
Yes. Well, some are easy, of course, because Sudan used to be one country and now it's been split in two, and you've got North Sudan and South Sudan. So that's quite easy to remember. But a lot of countries are changing. You don't know. But on that point,
Yeah.
on that point, we've both done a lot of work outside of the UK. And I'm thinking one of the other news stories which I didn't include was about India and play and recreation in India. I know that you've done an awful lot of work, but particularly neurodramatic play, NDP work in India. I wondered if you had any thoughts on maybe some differences in the approaches to play, either from families, parents, adults, or even the establishment, the government, on regards play and access to play. Is it any different from here, or is it much the same?
That's an interesting one, because certain things like playground games and singing games, India has the same equivalents as we have. It seems that type of playfulness and repetitive chants and clapping and counting are all part of that very early developmental stage in play. But where there were noticeable differences was in the storytelling.
Okay.
And as you know, I use Shakespeare a lot.
Yes.
Wherever I am in the world as part of my storytelling and drama. And the group in India made a special request. Could they actually use their own tales? So we were working with tales from the Mahabharata and Ramayana,
Okay.
which of course challenged me, because yes, of course I've seen them dramatized and heard them told, but I really had to get into some depth about certain tales that they would be using to enact as part of their course.
Can
So that
I
was very
just on that point, the Mahabharata? I know that Peter Brook did an amazing, what I've heard, an amazing set of productions on the Mahabharata that were, I think, 9 or 10 hours in length.
yeah.
And what is it? One of the things that he made people, I know you've seen it, I didn't actually see it, so this is just things I've heard, but one of the things is that he made the audience sit on benches for 9 hours to watch this. I mean, you went to it, I think, a couple of the performances. What what were they like? And was it really uncomfortable to watch, sitting down for 9 hours?
The production itself was so amazing that you began to forget about the discomfort. And you
Okay.
did have a break every 3 hours.
Okay, so
So
there was
you'd have a
intervals.
slice in the morning of 3 hours, and then a break, and then the afternoon, and then the evening. That was considered the marathon.
Right.
But some people would opt for going the morning one day, the afternoon the next day, and the evening the next day.
Oh. Would they
So
have
I
to
did
buy
both.
3 tickets for that?
I did both.
Right.
And although it was a marathon,
Yeah.
the 9 hours was truly life-changing.
Right. Life-changing
Because
in what way?
the impact of the actual content of the story being told actually reached you at a much, much deeper level.
Okay.
Because the second and then the third episode occurred so closely after the first one that the first experience hadn't left you. So it actually took you to another level. And of
Are you
course,
able to give for our viewers a very brief summary of the story of the Mahabharata, or what it's about?
No, not really.
Okay.
Because it's so complex, it would take me a couple of hours to tell you.
Okay.
Maybe next time I can think of a specific
Right.
segment, a little story that would make an impact in that moment.
But am I right in that? It, again, I'm just trying to get to the recesses of my memory, but it's about brothers. Is it about brothers and their relationships and going off and doing stuff?
Yeah, yes, but it's more than brothers. I mean, brothers is one huge segment. With these epic wars, these being fought out over periods of many, many years.
At what date was it situated in time?
Ancient times.
Ancient times. Okay.
It was sort of in the beginnings type of time.
Pre-colonization.
Maybe I could just tell a short Mahabharata story.
When?
Would that be helpful?
Oh, what now?
Yes.
If you've got one to mind, I don't want to put you on the spot, but yeah, why not? Gives our viewers a flavour.
We haven't really addressed the 3 newspaper headlines.
No, we haven't. Okay, so let's do the Mahabharata. Keep the newspapers, seeing as we're on the Mahabharata. I got one other question about it as well, but a very brief story that would be amazing, because me just saying 3 brothers.
Well, certainly it'd be one that could be introduced into the curriculum.
Yeah.
In the new attitude to play and drama, because it's a story that can be drawn, told, dramatized, and so on.
Wow.
So the landscape was bleak. There was nothing there. Trees had stopped growing, and the whole earth looked grey. McIntyre was walking across this landscape, stick in hand, old, weary, and very tired. All around him, all he could see was grey, and he walked and walked. And then, without warning, a tree sprung up in front of him. And nearby was a small child. And the child said, "McIntyre, you're tired. Why don't you sit and rest?" McIntyre sat, and the child looked at him again and said, "You're so tired. Why don't you come through my mouth?" And whoosh, a wind took McIntyre down, down, down through the child's mouth into a different landscape that was fruitful and green. He walked through this landscape, marveling at the new life, the flowers, the trees, people working in the fields, and he carried on walking and walking, seeing new growth and fertility. All of a sudden, the wind came back, whoosh, and took him back up through the child's mouth. And there he was, sitting under the tree, facing the child. And the child said, "McIntyre, you look rested now, but you've been away for 100 years.
Wow. Well, seeing as you said you couldn't remember any of them, that's a great little story, and wow,
it's a fascinating story, isn't it?
So many things to explore in that story as well, which we won't do now. Maybe we'll, if we get any comments about that from our viewers, maybe we can explore them more. But I do have one more question about the Mahabharata. And I know, I mean, you've already said that you saw it a couple of times in terms of, all one day and then splitting up over days. But you also saw it, I believe, a production in Tokyo in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was going to be my question. Was there any difference in how it was performed, or indeed how it was received in a place like Japan as it was in the UK?
Well, of course, in Japan, they're used to epic theatre, aren't they? To very long operas and performances of different sorts. I mean, when we've seen Japanese directors work at our National Theatre, they've produced something very, very different, and they've always been long. Audience has been warned, this performance lasts 5 hours.
Right.
So I think, in a sense, it was welcomed, because the time and the depth of the study and then length of the chorus speech or whatever it was fitted in with the Japanese experience.
Wow.
And the production by Peter Brook as well was very explicit. Even if you didn't speak the language, you would understand what was going on because of
Was it
the epic
performed in English?
dimension. Yes.
Okay. Well, that mirrors one of my experiences. Of course, I think you know about one of the projects that theatre projects that I took to Japan 20 odd years ago. It was a play that was both in English and Japanese. So it had both languages. Different characters could speak English, different characters could speak Japanese, and they, during the play, one of the conflicts, if you like, was them trying to find ways to be able to communicate and understand each other. We toured it in England. I'll keep the story short. We toured it in England. Very well received, particularly at a lot of the playhouses that we went to, but some of the schools, the students were, "Why did you have Japanese? I couldn't understand it." Not all, but there were a few. Whereas 100% of the schools in Japan welcomed the combination of languages, and was saying, it added another, well, not just another layer, several layers for them to be able to explore the themes in the play and communication and so on. So, yes, I think Japanese, from that, sort of equating to what you were saying, is that Japanese audiences are prepared to do more work in terms of being able to
and not
get
be
something.
just fed.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, on that as well, I think there was a very memorable occurrence at the National Theatre at one point, some years ago, with their educational department, and secondary schools came to a special performance, and the kids were mucking about, making a noise, and one of the actors stepped out of role and came to the front of the stage and said, "Look, we're performing this for you for the National Theatre. Don't you want to be here?" And the kid said no. So you can imagine that just brought everything to a standstill.
Wow.
Totally demoralizing the actors, understandably. But then what preparation had been done with these teenagers?
Indeed.
Right
And had
to
they
the
been
end.
given a choice?
Did they know what it was about? Did they know anything? I mean, even recently, I don't know if you saw on Facebook, there was a query: are we educating children even how to behave at theatre? Because apparently now children will take a full meal in and eat it while they're watching something. And
Mobile phones at the ready.
yes, I mean,
Yes.
one time people would complain about a packet of crisps. Now they're complaining about a full meal.
Wow.
But it goes back to primary school. Definite.
Well, if this, we're getting back to the news story, of course, the first news story, if drama is reintroduced into the curriculum, maybe from primary school, a bit more theatre etiquette, if you like, or how to watch a play, because that's a skill probably in itself, is, how you watch a play.
I think, Andy, whoever's going to be on this advisory board to design the curriculum, we need to be clear that they're including play and drama as a means of learning, but also play and drama as important in themselves. So it's not only using drama to learn history, it's actually learning about theatre and going to theatre. Did I ever tell you about my alternative to prison for young people?
You did, but tell us again, or tell me again.
Well, it was the idea that, and we could do it as an experiment to start with, that instead of sending a young person to prison, they could be referred to what I term a theatre house.
Mm-hmm.
And at a theatre house, everybody would have to choose one practical skill. So it could be electrics, it could be carpentry, it could be sewing, all of those practical things you need in theatre.
Mm-hmm.
So they would learn the skill as well as how it was applied in theatre. Plus, they also had to learn performance. And my theory was that doing that for 2 years,
Yeah.
they would both come out with a skill that could be applied in the workplace, as well as developing confidence, voice, movement
Mm.
through the drama work, which
Amazing.
through that would hopefully come to terms with what had led to the offending in the first place.
For sure.
And
Alternative
I've talked
pedagogies, we need them.
to lots of people about it. Amazing idea. I mean, but the government wouldn't agree. Nobody would fund it. But if you think how much prison costs to keep young people, and often young people come out only to reoffend again and go back into.
Yeah, I mean, it raises a question, is, what is education for? And if you think about some of the primary life skills that both of us, I think, feel that should be taught in schools, basic communication skills, sort of our rights, for example, how to deal with authority, how to deal with the law and so on. I mean, practical things that aren't taught at schools, and yet we still get taught things like, and I don't want to put down maths and mathematics and so on, but algebra. I was questioning algebra, being taught algebra when I was at school. Kids are still questioning, why is it still being taught at schools? And actually, I mean, I found no practical use for algebra in my personal life. And if ever I needed algebraic equations, it's so easy. There's so many tools around that we can use that actually we don't need them. So, yeah.
Is there anything in the idea that algebra actually exercises a part of your brain that wouldn't be exercised otherwise?
Is there? Yeah, I'd like to hear it if there is. Yeah. Okay.
Of course, there's this balance, isn't it, between why am I learning this? Well, you're learning this in order to do such and such. Between why am I learning this? Because learning this in itself is a good thing.
And of course, when you're learning, particularly when you're growing up, you don't think about how they're going to be useful to us in the future, and if they're not of use right there and then, if you can't see a practical use for them, it's very difficult to it's very difficult to teach, but also very difficult to stay focused as a learner. And it makes you question a lot of the other things maybe you're a bit bored with. Why am I being taught this?
And a lot will depend on the way something is taught, how it's taught. I mean, I've always developed a bit of a reputation for introducing creative techniques. So instead of just giving a paper, everybody has had a piece of plasticine and been asked to make something.
Right, yeah.
And it's always worked extremely well. That I'll talk for a little bit and then invite people to think about something. Maybe it's about a story when they were a child and what was the main character, and they'll use the plasticine to make something. Then they'll share it with the person next to them. And out of that comes a whole creative exercise.
Yes, the death by PowerPoint is a thing. I watched a presentation where this person, I can't remember the name unfortunately, but they were talking about death by PowerPoint, and they were saying, why can't we do something else? And they did a whole presentation. That's all right, bless you. They did a whole presentation using dancers. So instead of showing PowerPoint slides, they had interpretive dancers coming behind them to, in place of any presentation slides that they might have put up. It was amazing. Yeah, very creative, and kept you focused on what they were saying the whole time. Anything else you want to say about any of the other stories before we move on?
Well, I think the first one is the most important one about the curriculum. I really think the more we can support that, feed that, suggest that, write books for it, all sorts of things, that's very important. But I must say, addressing the issues of the play environment, i.e., what space do we have left for play, and this insidious feeling that actually the less we have play space, the more controlled we are. And people getting stuck in this idea of play has to be directed, because we really need to address the idea of free play constantly. Children need free play every day, preferably in nature.
Yes.
So access to the local stream, a field, some woods. I think when we think about the Temia, we always come back to the Temia, don't we? And because they were in a forest environment, yes, it had rules, there were things you weren't allowed to do, but it gave an enormous scope for playing, particularly in the river or in the mud on the river banks, or when they all went off to fetch bamboo, some children would find things to make from the bamboo.
And I think this is very apt, very poignant, what you're saying here about forest play, about nature play, when you look at one of the first things you said about, so many natural spaces, playgrounds, courts, playground spaces, recreational spaces, that was just maybe just grass and trees where children can play in, are being sold off and becoming urban developments, houses, offices, and so on. So there is less and less for people, for young people to play with. And there are so many stories about young people in schools, children in schools, not knowing where their food comes from because, they've never seen a cow being milked. They've never been on a farm. They've never been in nature and seeing things growing and being able to eat stuff off the tree, off the bushes, and so on. So, yeah.
Well, of course, I mean, very relevant here too, not just with children, but at one time, adult psychiatric hospitals would be located on a farm where people who were confined to the hospital would learn the routines and work with the animals and so on. But then there was a huge challenge by the authorities that should a health facility be located in a farm, and apparently quite a lot of farmers said, no, the farming belongs to us. We should be doing the farming. So all that in the end ended up with psychiatric hospitals not being in farms anymore.
Right.
And many people have thought about the negative effect that has had, that there was something about being in nature and being with animals at a primary level that was actually very helpful in psychiatry.
So not just related then to what Foucault might have been talking about I think particularly in his book Madness and Civilization, where one of his suggestions was that that psychiatric hospitals were kept out of big population areas just to keep mad people away from everyday civilization.
Well, that's one jaundiced view, isn't it? But what's often not realised was actually the beneficial effect. And let's face it, for everybody, that once you lose touch with nature, life becomes very, very impoverished, doesn't it? Life
It
becomes
does.
synthetic.
That's a good word, synthetic.
Mm.
Yeah. So there was one aspect of play that you wanted to talk about is it mechanized play, was it?
So play and organised games.
Organised games, that's right, yes. So
because I think for many people, they will accept the idea of play meaning a game.
Yeah.
An organised game, talking about team spirit and cooperation. And when, if we're honest, a lot of games do reinforce the less pleasant aspects of competitiveness rather than cooperation. So,
but there is a place for competitiveness, isn't there? Do you think?
absolutely, yes. But again, with the playing fields being sold off, children are having to be bused to a football pitch or the tennis courts.
Yeah, can't just walk
To be able
there.
to have an all-round sports curriculum, because it involves the body and the mind, I think is very important. I think we can combine individual sports like tennis with group sports like football. And of course, in the history of sport, we need to remember that it was one pupil's playful intervention that changed football into rugby.
Oh, right. There's a nice link to play. Tell us more. Because rugby, of course, developed in a town called Rugby, or was the town called Rugby
That's
because
right. It was
which
at
came
rugby
first?
school in Rugby
Right.
that a pupil in the middle of a game of football suddenly picked up the ball and ran with it and put it over the touchline. And rather than being reprimanded, they realised actually this was another way of playing football. So the game of rugby was redesigned and called rugby football after the school.
Right. So did they redesign it at the school and then it sort of developed out from there?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, rugby school developed rugby as a game, and that took on, and so there was an alternative to football. There were two types. And sometimes the status of a school was measured by which football game they had. Because at times, if I'm right, I think rugby football was looked upon as more primitive, and football was looked upon as more refined.
Which it would have done because it had been going on for longer, so that they've had a chance to refine it, haven't they? So breaking the rules can sometimes be a good thing.
Indeed. Well, certainly during the Reformation time, when theatre was banned and nobody was allowed to perform, actors were punished, they were caught performing. Some of the noble houses used to pretend they were having a game of tennis.
Right.
And they would invite friends and neighbours and other nobles to their house for a game of tennis, but in reality it was to see a piece of theatre. So that was another way of subverting the status quo. And I think this is an area that we haven't yet explored of play as subversion, and how a piece of theatre can actually change the status quo and make a difference.
I think that's one reason why many authorities have in the past and even in the present been frightened of theatre, because as you say, it can be a catalyst for change.
Perhaps that's a topic in itself we could explore sometime.
Okay, so without, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, without telling us any laws that you might have broken, are there any examples that you can remember in your life where you've playfully subverted the rules for whatever reason, and something joyful or positive or different or creative has come out of it?
The one I always remember because it was so playful and it was in collusion with a teacher as well, was when I was at secondary school and I was really struggling to learn Latin
Okay.
because Latin was a curriculum subject then.
Hmm.
And I wanted to learn it, but there was also a certain amount of sabotage from home that girls don't need to learn these things. And my Latin teacher said to me, "You collect cactus, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Why don't you bring some to school and tell us the Latin names for them?" They're quite unheard of in those days. We're talking many years ago.
Hmm.
I took 2 or 3 cactus and had them on my desk lined up, and
Ah.
it sort of was a little breakthrough for me because here was some Latin I did know for these plants.
Hmm. Well, that's also something new you've told me. I didn't know you collected cactus.
Oh, yes,
Hmm.
indeed. Right up until I left home when I couldn't obviously transport them with me.
Okay.
But I had a large cactus collection.
I love cactus myself. They are, I think, true survivors. Certainly the cactus that, well, one that I have in my house. I think I've told you the story of that one before. I won't repeat it now. But, they can survive in just anywhere in the world, can't they? In the middle of deserts where nothing else can survive. I think they're amazing plants, amazing beings. Okay, so I think, well, that's a good place to end this podcast on a nice, positive, prickly cactus note.
Indeed.
Before we do finish, any playful activity that you would like to suggest that might help somebody if they're feeling the blues, feeling a little bit down, or just
Well,
feeling a bit bored, maybe?
following on from what we've just been talking about,
Hmm.
I think if you're feeling down and the world feels bleak, make sure you've got your crayons and a piece of paper there. Draw a desert, and then draw your cactus in the middle of the desert. And then the third step is draw a yellow flower on the cactus.
A yellow flower.
Bright and cheerful, surviving in that totally empty environment, just like Macandaya was walking across.
Okay, well, mirroring that is this idea of tree hugging. Now, tree hugging used to be, you don't hug a cactus, especially a prickly one. I'll say that. But tree hugging used to be, a sort of a hippie activity. If you ever talked about, even the word tree huggers would refer to people that were typically hippies, dropouts, down and outs. But I think research has shown that actually hugging a tree can have a lot of beneficial effects for humans. It can relax you. It can give your mind a bit of a more sort of balanced state. And of course, you're going to be in nature when you're doing it. So it's another reason to go out to nature,
And it connects
hug
you
a
with those
tree
very deep roots as well.
with very deep roots. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Well, very interesting podcast this week. If you have enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. That helps the algorithm and gets us shown to other people so we can help build not only the podcast but the channel. Thank you for watching. Hope you've got something out of it. Sue, great to chat with you again. Look forward to the next episode.
Indeed. See you again. Bye.
Don't forget to play. Bye.